What if Hollywood's biggest disasters were actually masterpieces the studios were too blind to understand? During the 1970s, these 18 movies lost money, confused audiences, damaged careers, and disappeared from theaters. This ranking combines financial disappointment, troubled releases, and the influence each movie gained after its original failure. Before we expose Hollywood's most embarrassing mistakes, like this video and subscribe to the channel, because the biggest comeback on this list is almost impossible to believe. Number 18. Zabriskie Point, 1970. A cloud of controversy followed this strange desert drama before audiences had even seen it. MGM gave respected Italian filmmaker Michelangelo Antonioni a large budget and permission to capture America's counterculture, student protests, commercial greed, and growing generational anger. What the studio received was not another easy rebel adventure like Easy Rider. It was an abstract journey filled with quiet conversations, mysterious behavior, symbolic images, and characters who seemed disconnected from ordinary Hollywood storytelling. The plot follows Mark, a young man who becomes involved in student unrest and later escapes in a small aircraft. He eventually meets Daria, a young woman traveling through the desert to meet a wealthy property developer. Their paths cross at Zabriskie Point, where the empty landscape creates a temporary escape from politics, money, and authority. Instead of building toward a traditional romance, the film treats their meeting like a dream that might disappear at any moment. Its most famous sequence arrives near the ending. Daria imagines a luxurious desert house exploding again and again from different angles. Furniture, televisions, clothing, food, books, and household objects float through the air in slow motion. Pink Floyd's music transforms the destruction into a strange dance, turning consumer products into beautiful pieces of flying debris. Number 17. The Last Movie, 1971. Success gave Dennis Hopper enough power to create almost anything, and that freedom quickly became a studio nightmare. After Easy Rider transformed him into a symbol of the new Hollywood revolution, Universal allowed him to direct an experimental production in Peru. Executives expected another youthful sensation. Instead, Hopper returned with a fragmented story about filmmaking, imitation, cultural exploitation, and the dangerous moment when people can no longer separate entertainment from reality. At the center is Kansas, a stunt coordinator working on a Western being filmed in a remote Peruvian village. When a performer loses his life during production, Kansas decides to abandon Hollywood and remain with a local woman. He believes he has escaped the artificial world of movies, but the village has already absorbed what the visiting film crew brought with it. Local residents begin creating their own production with cameras and equipment made from sticks. The most unsettling scenes show villagers recreating Western action without understanding that movie danger is normally controlled. Fake weapons and pretend ceremonies become increasingly serious. Kansas attempts to explain that movies are illusions, yet nobody seems interested in listening. The production inside the story becomes a distorted mirror of Hopper's own production outside it. Editing continued for months as Hopper repeatedly reshaped the footage. The completed film was difficult to market, received a limited release, and became a critical and financial disaster. Its failure damaged Hopper's reputation so badly that he did not direct another feature for years. Time eventually rescued it. Restorations and retrospective screenings encouraged viewers to reconsider its broken structure as intentional rather than careless. Modern filmmakers now recognize its ideas about media, cultural invasion, and people copying images without understanding their meaning. The studio saw chaos. Later generations saw a warning about a future controlled by cameras. Hollywood has buried hundreds of movies, but fans keep proving that a bad opening weekend is not a final judgment. Like the video, subscribe, and tell us which forgotten 70s disaster deserves another chance. Number 16. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971. Nothing about this colorful family musical looked like a future failure. It had a popular children's story, memorable songs, imaginative sets, and Gene Wilder giving one of the most mysterious performances ever placed inside a children's film. Nevertheless, families did not rush to theaters, and the original release produced only modest business compared with what its backers expected. The story follows Charlie Bucket, a poor but generous boy who lives with his mother and 4 grandparents. When secretive candy maker Willy Wonka hides 5 golden tickets inside chocolate bars, children around the world desperately search for them. Charlie eventually discovers the final ticket and enters Wonka's factory with his grandfather. Once the gates close, the bright adventure becomes much stranger. Each child represents a different weakness. Augustus cannot control his appetite. Violet refuses to stop showing off. Veruca demands everything immediately. Mike cares more about television than the people around him. One by one, their behavior leads them into bizarre trouble, while Charlie tries to remain honest. The boat tunnel sequence became especially famous. Wonka takes the visitors through a dark tunnel, while disturbing images flash across the walls. His voice grows louder as the boat moves faster, leaving both the characters and the audience unsure whether he is protecting the children or frightening them on purpose. Another unforgettable moment arrives when Wonka angrily tells Charlie that he has lost the promised prize before secretly rewarding him for returning the everlasting gobstopper. The movie earned only about $4 million against a production cost of roughly $3 million, which was not enough to make it an impressive theatrical success. Paramount eventually allowed its rights to expire. Television broadcasts and home video changed everything. Children watched it repeatedly, adults discovered its darker humor, and Wilder's Wonka became a cultural icon. Decades later, Hollywood built new adaptations, prequels, merchandise, attractions, and entire marketing campaigns around a film the original distributor had effectively surrendered. Number 15. Harold and Maude, 1971. Few studio executives could have confidently sold a romance between a death-obsessed young man and a lively woman approaching 80. That unusual relationship made Hal Ashby's dark comedy one of the decade's most difficult marketing challenges. Paramount released it to poor ticket sales, harsh reviews, and widespread confusion. Within a short time, it seemed destined to disappear. Young Harold lives in enormous comfort, but feels completely disconnected from his controlling mother and the artificial world around him. He stages elaborate fake departures from life, attends funerals belonging to strangers, and quietly watches other people react to his disturbing behavior. His mother responds by arranging dates, buying him a new car, and attempting to force him into a respectable future. Everything changes when he meets Maude at a funeral. She refuses to behave according to society's rules. She borrows cars, rescues struggling trees, collects unusual objects, and treats every ordinary moment as an opportunity for adventure. Harold initially follows her because he is curious. Soon, her love of life begins breaking through his carefully constructed sadness. One of the movie's most memorable scenes involves Harold's expensive Jaguar. After his mother replaces his beloved vehicle with a newer model, he quietly transforms the polished car into something resembling a funeral vehicle. The moment is funny, rebellious, and deeply revealing. He is rejecting the identity others are trying to purchase for him. The original theatrical run was a spectacular disappointment, with some theaters reportedly dropping it very quickly. Repertory cinemas and college audiences later kept it alive. Cat Stevens' soundtrack helped younger viewers embrace its emotional mixture of humor and sadness. Number 14. The Long Goodbye, 1973. Imagine taking one of fiction's toughest private detectives and presenting him as a confused man, wandering through a decade that no longer respects his values. That decision angered viewers who expected a traditional mystery. Director Robert Altman was not interested in giving them one. He treated Philip Marlowe as a leftover from another era and placed him inside the relaxed, self-centered world of 1970s Los Angeles. The story begins with an ordinary problem. Marlowe's cat refuses to eat its usual food, so he drives through the night searching for the correct brand. The joke establishes the entire movie. This detective may eventually face deception, corruption, and serious danger, but his first defeat comes from an animal that simply walks away from him. Soon afterward, Marlowe helps his friend Terry Lennox travel to Mexico. When Terry's wife is found dead, police officers question Marlowe and place him in custody. After his release, he investigates Lennox's supposed death while becoming involved with alcoholic writer Roger Wade and Wade's secretive wife, Eileen. Every answer produces another lie. The movie's final confrontation became especially famous because it completely overturns the character's traditional moral code. After discovering that Terry used him, Marlowe refuses to respond with another clever speech. He makes a sudden decision and calmly walks away, while music plays in the distance. The old detective has finally adapted to the new world, but only by abandoning part of himself. Early preview audiences reacted badly, and the limited release struggled. MGM temporarily withdrew the film and redesigned its advertising to emphasize its satire. That campaign could not turn it into a major hit. Number 13. The Wicker Man, 1973. A British police officer searching for a missing child does not sound like the beginning of a musical nightmare. That is exactly what made this strange production so difficult to categorize. It contained mystery, folk songs, religious conflict, dark humor, and an unforgettable ending, yet its distributor treated it like an unwanted problem. Sergeant Neil Howie receives a letter claiming that a girl named Rowan Morrison has disappeared from the isolated Scottish island of Summerisle. As a deeply religious and highly disciplined officer, Howie expects the islanders to cooperate. Instead, they claim Rowan never existed. Their behavior becomes increasingly confusing as they sing openly, celebrate nature, and follow rituals that offend everything Howie believes. Lord Summerisle, played with calm authority by Christopher Lee, explains that the island follows an older belief system. Howie becomes convinced that Rowan is about to be used in a ceremonial sacrifice. During the island's May Day celebration, he disguises himself and searches through the crowd, eventually finding the girl and helping her escape. That rescue is actually a trap. The islanders lead him toward a gigantic wooden figure standing above the sea. Only then does Howie realize that he, not Rowan, was the carefully selected offering. The closing sequence cuts between his desperate prayers and the islanders singing as the wooden structure burns against the sunset. It remains one of horror cinema's most haunting finales. The original version was heavily shortened, poorly promoted, and released without confidence. Some material reportedly vanished, while the filmmakers received little financial reward. Over time, television screenings, home releases, restored editions, and enthusiastic critics transformed its reputation. Number 12. Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, 1974. By the middle of the decade, Sam Peckinpah's relationship with Hollywood had become almost as troubled as the lives of his characters. His bleak Mexican crime drama arrived with an unforgettable title, yet critics treated it like proof that the director had finally lost control. Ticket buyers mostly stayed away, leaving behind a failure that Peckinpah considered one of his most personal films. A powerful landowner offers a large reward for Alfredo Garcia after learning that Garcia has brought shame upon his family. Two professional enforcers begin searching for him and eventually question Benny, an unsuccessful American piano player working in a Mexican bar. Benny learns from his partner Alita that Garcia has already died in a road accident. Believing the reward can provide them with a new life, Benny and Alita travel to Garcia's grave. Their plan appears simple: collect the required proof, deliver it, and disappear with the money. Instead, their journey becomes a tragic descent through betrayal, greed, and emotional destruction. The graveyard sequence captures the movie at its darkest. Benny digs beneath a tree while Alita watches, already recognizing that their dream is collapsing. Later, he begins speaking to Garcia's severed head, as though it were a traveling companion. The image could have become ridiculous, but Warren Oates plays Benny with enough exhaustion and pain to make it strangely moving. Critics attacked the film, and it failed commercially. It was even included in a book listing supposedly terrible movies. Peckinpah's reputation for difficult productions made it easy for Hollywood to dismiss the result as another uncontrolled project. Number 11. Phantom of the Paradise, 1974. Before elaborate music videos and theatrical pop concerts dominated entertainment, Brian De Palma created a rock musical filled with masks, flashing lights, dangerous contracts, and performers manufactured by a ruthless producer. Audiences were not ready for its wild combination of horror, comedy, science fiction, and music industry satire. Winslow Leach is a talented but unknown composer working on a large musical project. Powerful producer Swan hears the music and decides to steal it for the opening of his new concert hall, the Paradise. Winslow tries to stop him but is framed, imprisoned, and injured during an escape attempt. Hidden behind a metallic bird-like mask, he returns to the Paradise as a mysterious figure. Swan offers him a contract and promises that singer Phoenix will perform his work. As Winslow continues composing, he discovers that Swan has no intention of keeping his promises. The producer replaces performers whenever a new fashion appears, treating artists like disposable products. One unforgettable scene shows Winslow attacking a performance during a cheerful musical number. A large stage prop has been prepared for an explosive effect, but the Phantom turns the planned spectacle into genuine chaos. De Palma presents the sequence through split-screen images, mixing Alfred Hitchcock-style suspense with rock concert energy. The movie performed poorly across most of North America, despite developing an unusually passionate audience in Winnipeg. Critics struggled with its shifting tone, and the studio could not decide whether to sell it as a comedy, a horror film, or a musical. Its failure became increasingly embarrassing as popular culture moved closer to the world it predicted. Music television, electronic performers, masked musicians, manufactured celebrities, and producers controlling artists all made the film seem more accurate. Daft Punk admired its visual world, while directors including Edgar Wright celebrated its influence. It did not conquer theaters in 1974, but its creative DNA later appeared throughout music, movies, and live performance. Number 10. The Killing of a Chinese Bookie, 1976. Nothing moves normally in John Cassavetes' crime drama. Conversations stretch beyond comfortable limits. Professional criminals behave like nervous businessmen, and the hero seems more concerned about his nightclub's performances than the danger surrounding him. Audiences expecting a fast gangster thriller quickly discovered they had entered a character study disguised as one. Cosmo Vitelli owns the Crazy Horse West, a small Los Angeles nightclub where performers present strange routines, led by an emotional entertainer known as Mr. Sophistication. Cosmo considers himself a serious artist. He selects the acts, controls the lighting, and treats the club as a reflection of his identity, even when customers appear confused. After finally paying an old debt, he celebrates by gambling and immediately loses a large amount to gangsters. Unable to pay, Cosmo is offered another arrangement. His debt will disappear if he eliminates a rival they describe as an unimportant Chinese bookmaker. Cosmo accepts, only to discover that the target is far more powerful than he was told. The attack on the bookmaker's guarded home avoids glamorous action. Cosmo looks frightened, confused, and physically uncomfortable. His carefully planned escape begins falling apart almost immediately. When he returns to the club injured, he still worries about whether the evening's show is running correctly. The original version lasted more than 2 hours and was pulled after only a week. Cassavetes later created a shorter cut, rearranging scenes and removing several nightclub performances. Neither version turned the movie into a commercial success. Its reputation grew because later viewers understood that the crime plot was not really the center. Cosmo is an artist being controlled by people who only value money, making his situation a reflection of Cassavetes' own battles with distributors. Independent filmmakers embraced its uncomfortable pauses, emotional uncertainty, and refusal to explain every character. What theaters dismissed as slow and shapeless became a masterclass in turning genre into personal cinema. Number 9. Mikey and Nicky, 1976. A simple night between two lifelong friends became one of the most difficult productions Paramount had experienced. Elaine May filmed enormous amounts of material, repeatedly exceeded schedules, and fought for control of the final version. The studio eventually released the movie with little support, allowing a deeply personal crime drama to vanish almost immediately. Nicky is a small-time criminal hiding inside a hotel room because he believes someone has been sent to silence him. Terrified and physically unwell, he calls his oldest friend, Mikey, for help. Mikey arrives with medicine, reassures him, and begins guiding him through the city. However, the audience already knows that Mikey has secretly agreed to help the waiting attacker locate Nicky. Most of the movie follows the two men wandering through Philadelphia during one desperate night. They argue, laugh, remember childhood experiences, visit people from their past, and reopen old resentments. Nicky behaves recklessly because fear has stripped away his self-control. Mikey attempts to complete his betrayal while repeatedly confronting the fact that he still cares about his friend. One of the strongest scenes occurs near the end, when Nicky reaches Mikey's home and desperately calls from outside. Mikey stands behind a locked door while his wife and child watch. His divided loyalties finally become impossible to hide. The moment is not built around action. It is built around a door, a frightened voice, and a man realizing his decision cannot be reversed. The budget increased dramatically during production, and Paramount took control of the editing. Its limited release failed at the box office and damaged May's directing career for a decade. Number 8. The Missouri Breaks, 1976. Placing Marlon Brando and Jack Nicholson in the same Western sounded like guaranteed box office success. Brando had recently returned to the top of Hollywood, while Nicholson had become one of the decade's hottest actors. Director Arthur Penn had already delivered major classics. Expectations were enormous, which only made the public rejection more painful. Tom Logan leads a group of horse thieves operating in Montana. After a powerful rancher named David Braxton catches and punishes one member of Logan's gang, the thieves secretly purchase land near Braxton's property. Logan also becomes involved with Braxton's independent daughter, Jane, creating tension between his criminal plans and his growing connection to the family. Braxton responds by hiring Robert E. Lee Clayton, an unusual regulator assigned to hunt the thieves. Brando plays Clayton as a collection of unpredictable voices, strange movements, costumes, and personal habits. Sometimes he appears amusing. At other moments, he becomes quietly threatening. A memorable scene shows Clayton approaching a sleeping target while dressed in an unexpected outfit and speaking in a calm, almost playful manner. The humor makes the danger more unsettling because nobody, including the audience, can predict what he will do next. His final confrontation with Logan becomes a battle between Nicholson's controlled anger and Brando's deliberate eccentricity. The film arrived after months of publicity, but failed to match its expensive cast and major studio expectations. Reviews focused heavily on Brando's performance, often treating his choices as self-indulgent rather than frightening. The commercial disappointment contributed to the declining popularity of large traditional westerns and reportedly slowed Penn's directing career. Number 7. Over the Edge, 1979. The studio became frightened of this movie before the public had a fair opportunity to discover it. Concerns about youth crime and other gang-related releases caused Warner Brothers and Orion to restrict its theatrical exposure. What could have become a major teen drama was tested in only a limited group of cities, preventing it from building normal momentum. New Granada is a planned suburban community, designed to attract families and businesses. From the outside, it appears clean, modern, and safe. For the teenagers living there, it feels empty. Their parents attend meetings about property values and future development, while ignoring the lack of meaningful places for young people to gather. Carl Ritchie and their friends spend their days experimenting with substances, carrying weapons, breaking rules, and hiding inside a recreation center that adults repeatedly threaten to close. Ritchie, played by a young Matt Dillon, becomes the group's most unpredictable member. He is angry, fearless, and convinced that every adult has already decided he is worthless. The movie's most famous section begins when parents and officials gather inside a school to discuss the teenagers' behavior. The young people lock the adults inside and turn the parking area into a chaotic rebellion. Cars are damaged, windows break, and years of ignored frustration explode at once. The sequence feels less like a fantasy and more like a warning about what happens when adults build communities but forget to build relationships. Its tiny theatrical release meant that ticket revenue had little chance to recover the production cost. Cable television and home video later brought it to the audience it had been denied. Number 6. New York, New York, 1977. Coming immediately after Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese's lavish musical seemed ready to prove he could conquer any genre. Robert De Niro and Liza Minnelli provided enormous star power, while expensive sets recreated a dreamlike version of post-war New York. Yet the director's decision to combine a glamorous studio musical with an emotionally ugly relationship confused viewers. Jimmy Doyle is a talented but aggressive saxophone player who meets singer Francine Evans during celebrations, marking the end of the Second World War. Jimmy refuses to accept her initial rejection, repeatedly following her until their professional and romantic lives become connected. They begin performing together, marry, and build careers. But his jealousy and instability place constant pressure on Francine. Instead of presenting their love as a cheerful musical fantasy, the story shows ambition tearing them apart. Jimmy wants artistic freedom and control. Francine begins attracting wider attention and eventually becomes a major star. Their successes make the relationship more difficult rather than rescuing it. The argument inside a car became one of its most revealing scenes. Jimmy's insecurity turns an ordinary conversation into an exhausting confrontation, with De Niro's improvisational energy pushing against Minnelli's controlled performance. Another major moment belongs to Francine's large stage performance near the ending. The film finally delivers the polished musical spectacle audiences expected, but only after showing the emotional cost behind it. Its budget reached roughly $14 million, and the original release did not earn enough to justify that expense after distribution and marketing. The film was quickly shortened, but the altered version could not repair its reputation. The comeback began with the title song. Minnelli's performance became famous, and Frank Sinatra's later recording turned it into an unofficial anthem for New York City. Longer versions of the film encouraged critical reconsideration, while its uncomfortable mixture of artificial sets and raw emotion influenced later musicals. Hollywood rejected the movie, but embraced its music, imagery, and willingness to place damaged relationships inside beautiful entertainment. Number 5. Sorcerer, 1977. Few commercial collapses have been explained by a single neighboring movie as dramatically as this one. William Friedkin had directed The French Connection and The Exorcist, giving him enough influence to create an enormously difficult international thriller. Then Star Wars arrived, and audiences suddenly wanted spaceships, heroic adventures, and excitement that could be enjoyed repeatedly. Friedkin's grim jungle nightmare offered the exact opposite. 4 men hiding from troubled pasts become stranded in a poor South American settlement. Jackie Scanlon escaped after a robbery went wrong in New Jersey. Victor Manzon fled financial scandal in Paris. Kassim survived a political attack in Jerusalem. Nilo is a secretive professional whose history remains uncertain. An oil well disaster creates an opportunity to escape. The company needs drivers to transport unstable explosives across more than 200 miles of dangerous jungle roads. The material is so sensitive that one major movement could destroy an entire truck. The 4 men accept because the promised payment may finally buy their freedom. Its legendary bridge sequence places 2 trucks on a collapsing wooden structure during a violent storm. Rain covers the driver's vision, while water shakes the bridge beneath them. Friedkin used full-sized vehicles and practical locations, making every movement feel dangerously real. The scene lasts far longer than modern action editing would normally allow, forcing viewers to experience every painful inch. Production problems pushed the budget beyond $20 million. locations failed, weather changed, equipment disappeared, and the film opened in the shadow of Star Wars. It could not recover its enormous cost, and its failure weakened Friedkin's control in Hollywood. Decades of reassessment completely changed the conversation. Restorations allowed audiences to see its photography and sound properly, while directors praised its physical filmmaking. The bridge scene became a standard comparison whenever modern thrillers claimed to use practical danger. What once looked like an expensive act of arrogance now appears to many viewers as Friedkin's masterpiece. Number 4. The Wiz, 1978. On paper, this urban reimagining of The Wizard of Oz looked unstoppable. Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Richard Pryor, Lena Horne, Nipsey Russell, Quincy Jones, and director Sidney Lumet represented an extraordinary collection of talent. Universal invested heavily, expecting a major event musical. Instead, the production became one of the decade's most discussed disappointments. Dorothy is reimagined as a shy Harlem schoolteacher who rarely travels beyond her familiar neighborhood. During a snowstorm, she attempts to rescue her dog and is carried into a fantasy version of New York known as Oz. There she follows a bright road through enormous city landscapes while searching for the mysterious Wiz. Along the way, she meets a scarecrow trapped by insulting crows, a tin man crushed beneath machinery, and a cowardly lion hiding inside a stone statue. Each companion believes something important is missing from his personality. Together they travel toward Emerald City, where they expect the Wiz to solve every problem. The subway sequence became one of the movie's strangest moments. Station columns and trash containers appear to come alive, chasing the group through an underground nightmare. Another famous scene places the characters inside Emerald City as fashionable crowds repeatedly change clothing colors according to whatever trend is announced. The production reportedly cost around $24 million, making it one of the most expensive musicals of its time. Domestic ticket sales reached approximately $21 or $22 million, which was not enough to cover production, advertising, and theater shares. The disappointment helped convince studios that giant movie musicals had lost their audience. Television changed its reputation. Families watched it repeatedly. Michael Jackson's performance gained greater historical importance, and songs such as Ease on Down the Road remained popular. Its all-black fantasy world, ambitious production design, dance sequences, and celebration of urban culture inspired later stage productions, musicians, designers, and filmmakers. The box office treated it like a warning. Its long cultural life turned it into a landmark. Number 3. Days of Heaven, 1978. Every frame appears carefully painted, yet the beauty made this romantic drama difficult to sell as ordinary entertainment. Terrence Malick spent years shaping his second feature, photographed largely during brief periods of natural evening light. The result received admiration for its images, but produced little financial excitement. Bill works in a Chicago factory, but is forced to flee after a violent confrontation. He travels to the Texas Panhandle with his partner Abby and his younger sister Linda. To avoid suspicion, Bill and Abby pretend to be brother and sister while joining workers harvesting crops on a wealthy farmer's land. The farmer falls in love with Abby. After Bill learns that the man may be seriously ill, he encourages her to accept a marriage proposal. His plan is cold but practical. Wait for the farmer to pass away, inherit his wealth, and finally escape poverty. The farmer survives longer than expected, while Abby begins developing genuine feelings for him. Jealousy and suspicion slowly destroy the arrangement. The locust sequence is the film's visual centerpiece. Thousands of insects swarm the fields as workers desperately try to protect the crops. Flames spread across the land after darkness, turning the peaceful farm into a glowing disaster. To create shots of locusts rising toward the sky, the filmmakers reportedly dropped lightweight material from above, asked performers to move backward, and reverse the footage. The movie cost around $3 million and earned only slightly more in theatrical revenue, making it commercially unsuccessful once marketing and distribution expenses were considered. Malick then disappeared from feature directing for approximately 2 decades. Its influence only grew during his absence. Cinematographers studied its use of natural light, voice-over narration, wide landscapes, and characters photographed as small figures inside nature. It won the Academy Award for Cinematography and was later selected for preservation in the National Film Registry. Modern historical dramas, perfume advertisements, music videos, and prestige television repeatedly imitate its golden hour imagery. Hollywood could not turn it into a hit, but it spent decades trying to look like it. Number 2. The Driver, 1978. Long before Drive and Baby Driver, Walter Hill removed almost everything unnecessary from a crime thriller. His characters had titles instead of names, dialogue was reduced to short statements, and emotion was expressed through movement, engines, streets, and controlled silence. American audiences largely rejected the result, but later action filmmakers treated it like a sacred text. The central figure is known only as the driver. Criminal groups hire him because he can escape almost any police pursuit. He remains calm, speaks very little, and follows a strict professional code. A determined detective called the Player wants to capture him, but lacks enough evidence. The Player arrests a group of criminals and offers them freedom if they hire the driver for another job. His plan is to create a robbery that will place the driver inside a trap. A mysterious woman, known as the Connection, becomes involved, but her loyalty remains uncertain. The underground parking garage scene immediately explains the hero's ability. Criminals question whether he deserves his reputation, so he drives their car through the concrete structure, deliberately striking pillars and destroying sections of the vehicle without losing control. When he stops, the car is nearly ruined, but everyone inside understands that he could have done far worse. The production cost roughly $4 million and failed commercially in the United States. Some viewers found Ryan O'Neal too quiet, while critics considered the stripped-down characters emotionally empty. Its reputation grew enormously. Quentin Tarantino praised it, while Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive and Edgar Wright's Baby Driver carried obvious traces of its cool professional hero and carefully designed driving sequences. Video games about getaway drivers also followed similar ideas. Hill's precise nighttime photography and clean action editing became increasingly valuable as other movies grew louder and more complicated. Number 1. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, 1975. No comeback on this list is stranger, longer, or more complete. When this musical comedy first expanded beyond its successful Los Angeles engagement, audiences stayed away. The planned New York opening was canceled, theaters removed it, and the studio appeared ready to move on. Instead of disappearing, it created a new way for audiences to experience movies. Newly engaged couple Brad and Janet become stranded during a storm when their car breaks down. Searching for help, they enter a remote castle filled with singing strangers attending a mysterious celebration. Their host is Dr. Frank N. Furter, an extravagant scientist preparing to reveal his latest creation. That creation is Rocky, a muscular young man designed inside a laboratory. Brad and Janet's quiet, respectable world quickly collapses as Frank's guests dance. Secrets are exposed, and the castle is revealed to contain visitors from another planet. The time warp sequence became the movie's great invitation. Characters explain the dance directly to the audience, while the entire castle joins the performance. The movie encourages participation before its real-life viewers even begin creating their own traditions. Tim Curry's entrance during Sweet Transvestite is equally famous. He descends in a cape, turns toward the guests, and takes control of the movie with one performance. Its initial expansion failed, and a college double-feature re-release also attracted limited interest. Fox executive Tim Deegan then placed it in midnight screenings. At New York's Waverly Theater, viewers began returning in costume, shouting responses, carrying props, and eventually performing below the screen as shadow casts. By the end of the decade, these rituals had spread across hundreds of theaters. The film became one of cinema's longest-running theatrical releases and entered the National Film Registry. Its fans transformed spectatorship into a live communal performance. These 18 movies prove that opening weekend numbers cannot measure a film's future. Studios called them confusing, expensive, unmarketable, or finished, but audiences gave them a second life. Some became cult traditions, some changed entire genres, and others influenced directors who later ruled Hollywood. Which disaster deserved the number 1 position? Share your choice below, like the video, and subscribe for more forgotten classics, shocking failures, and incredible Hollywood comebacks.